If you've ever dreamt of international relocation, Tokyo almost certainly tops the list. It's this, ultimate vision of a high-tech, historically deep, perfectly ordered city.
But for most of us, that dream immediately slams into the harsh reality of cost.
Exactly. Tokyo has this legendary, almost insurmountable reputation for being one of the world's most expensive cities.
And that assumption is precisely what we are challenging in this deep dive. We've synthesized a stack of sources to figure out if that reputation is well-deserved.
And specifically to answer the question for you, can a single person, or even a small family, live a comfortable life in Tokyo on a budget around, say, $4,000 a month?
Which is roughly $600,000.
And the initial data we pulled might actually surprise you. To ground this discussion right away, let's just look at the averages.
Okay, so for a single person in Tokyo, the monthly cost, and this covers rent and all standard expenses, it averages surprisingly low. About $318,407.
Which is just over $2,050.
It sounds incredibly manageable, especially given the global reputation the city carries.
Right, but context is everything. Look at what happens when you introduce a family.
Oh yeah, it changes completely. A family of four's average cost jumps significantly to around $951,720.
So about $6,100 a month. That huge gulf tells us instantly that space, and by extension housing, is the real gatekeeper of affordability here.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that initial snapshot, $2,050 for a single person, it just flies in the face of what everyone thinks they know about Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Where did this reputation as a wallet siphon come from? And is it even still true?
The expense narrative around Tokyo is, well, it's definitely inflated when you connect it to the bigger picture.
The bigger global picture.
Exactly. Of global finance. It is, without a doubt, the priciest city in Japan. But when you zoom out to look at other major international centers, London, New York, Sydney, Tokyo often drops down in the rankings.
So it becomes more manageable than those perceived competitors.
A lot more manageable. And that's a critical shift in perspective for our listener. We generally put Tokyo in the same bracket as New York or Singapore, assuming maximum expense.
But the data we analyzed shows that for certain budgets, Tokyo can actually provide financial relief compared to other Tier 1 global cities.
We found a really stunning data point when looking at family costs. Take a family of four. In London, that family can expect monthly costs around $1,509,359.
Wow.
But that same family, maintaining a similar standard of living in Tokyo, is looking at approximately $951,720.
That is a colossal saving. I mean, that's nearly $3,600 less per month than London.
And the sources really emphasize that whether you hit the high end or the low end of that Tokyo budget, it comes down to two major variables.
Location and lifestyle.
Exactly. Are you a cook who shops at local discount supermarkets or a diner who eats out every night? And more critically, are you prioritizing a prestigious address in Shinjuku or Shibuya, or are you willing to take a slightly longer train ride?
If you demand centrality, your costs are going to jump dramatically.
That distinction perfectly sets up the biggest financial hurdle in any move: housing. Rent is the single greatest expense, and the Tokyo housing market is notorious for surprising expats.
With hidden costs and unique requirements.
Right. Rent is absolutely where that $4,000 budget is either won or lost.
So let's talk averages. If you're looking for a small studio apartment, say 20 to 25 square meters, what does that look like?
The price depends wildly on the ward. Central Tokyo averages around $80,000, which is about $727. If you move into the truly upscale wards, you might be closer to $110,000.
$1,000. Now, based on that data, $727 for a studio sounds relatively reasonable, especially compared to, like, San Francisco or Manhattan. But I have to challenge that average. What does that price point actually get you in Tokyo?
That's a crucial point. When we talk about $727 being the average for central Tokyo, we're often talking about older buildings.
How old?
Maybe 30 to 40 years old, perhaps with a smaller kitchen or a bit further from the main station. It's certainly livable, but it's not a brand new luxury condo.
So compromise on space and age is necessary to maintain that lower average.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the monthly rent is deceptive. Expats consistently report what we call the upfront shock.
The upfront shock. Okay.
Yeah, the initial costs to secure a lease in Tokyo can be financially devastating if you aren't prepared for the scale of it.
You need to mentally prepare for an initial outlay that can easily run 5 or 6 times the stated monthly rent.
Exactly. This is the difference between having $4,000 in your bank account and needing maybe $20,000 just to sign the paperwork.
Walk us through those fees because they are complex and very different from the Western system.
Okay, so the first fee is the security deposit, or shakin. This is pretty standard 1 to 2 months rent, and it's refundable, usually minus cleaning or repair fees.
Standard enough. But then comes the painful one.
The truly painful one is next, key money, or reikin. This is where newcomers are often just completely caught off guard.
Tell us more about key money. We call it a gift to the landlord, but what's the context for this non-refundable payment?
Well, historically, key money was a show of gratitude to the landlord for offering scarce housing. Today, it's mostly just an entrenched tradition.
But the fact remains, it is pure profit for the landlord, and it is non-refundable.
Correct. And like the deposit, it can be 1 to 2 months rent. So right there, you are already down 2 to 4 months rent before agency fees even start.
Exactly. Then you pay agency fees, which is typically another month's rent plus tax, and sometimes a prepaid cleaning fee. If your rent is $100,000, you could easily pay $500,000 to $600,000 just to get the keys.
That's a massive hit right at the start. It requires significant savings before you even arrive.
And the sources emphasize that the bureaucratic hurdles for expats just compound this problem.
That's right. Finding a place isn't just about money, it's about acceptance.
What do you mean?
A major hurdle is the guarantor requirement. Landlords prefer a Japanese guarantor, but if you don't have one, which most newcomers won't, you're forced to use a paid guarantor company.
Which is another fee.
Another required fee, typically 50 to 100% of 1 month's rent. On top of that, the sources confirm some landlords just won't rent to foreigners, period, regardless of financial stability.
So that narrows your options and extends the whole search process.
Dramatically.
So for our listener aiming for that comfortable $600,000 budget, the practical tip is clear. Prioritize minimizing rent. Where should they be looking?
Look beyond the central loop. Affordable wards that are still well-connected include Adachi, Nerima, or Suganami. You can often find a much newer, larger apartment there for the same price as an older central studio.
And what about somewhere with a balance of amenities and price?
For that, look at neighborhoods like Musashi Koyama or Seijugaku in Mae. They have excellent local life and direct train lines into the business centers. Sacrificing maybe 15 minutes on the commute can save you $30,000 or more per month.
Let's transition past that major rental chunk and look at the daily budget. This is where the discipline kicks in. Food, utilities, and transportation.
This is where people either succeed in staying below that $4,000 threshold or where the little daily costs start to chip away at everything.
Food in Tokyo is, well, it's a glorious yet tricky balancing act.
It really is. You can eat very cheaply, but the temptation to indulge is constant because the quality is so high. If you are diligent, groceries for a single person can range from $15,000 to $40,000 a month.
And the key saving strategy.
The sources highlight discount supermarkets like Life or the OK Store, especially near closing time when prepared foods get marked down.
But let's be realistic, you're not moving to Tokyo just to cook instant ramen every night.
Of course not. And Japanese fast food and casual dining are incredibly affordable. You can grab a bowl of ramen for about $900, a decent curry set for around $700.
Even a casual conveyor belt sushi meal for $1,200. That's cheaper than most casual dining in Europe or North America.
And that affordability is what makes budgeting tough. The average single person's total food costs, and this includes groceries, snacks, and a fair amount of eating out, lands around $28,000 a month.
But if you want to push that figure lower, say closer to $15,000, cooking at home nearly every night becomes mandatory. That's the lifestyle trade-off.
Moving on to utilities, these are relatively consistent, but they hide seasonality costs.
What's the typical monthly cluster for essential services?
On average, you're looking at about $13,300 total. We break that down into approximately $4,500 for electricity, $2,800 for gas, $2,000 for water, and about $4,000 for Wi-Fi.
But you mentioned seasonality.
Right. The crucial point for budgeting is that electricity bill. Tokyo has extremely humid summers and dry, cold winters, which means you rely heavily on AC and heating.
So those electricity bills can easily double or triple during the peak months.
Easily. You have to budget for that fluctuation year-round.
And then there's transportation. The Tokyo train system is legendary, but it's not free.
It is magnificent, yes, but for commuters, individual fares are absolute budget killers. If you were traveling the same route daily, the commuter pass or Taikinken is essential.
What did that
It usually costs between $10,000 and $15,000 monthly. If you only use your IC card for occasional trips outside that zone, you'll need another 4,000 to 5,000 of top-ups.
So the smart move is to maximize the commuter pass and, whenever possible, just walk or bike.
Precisely. Biking and walking for short trips saves you those quick 200 or 300 top-ups, and in a city as dense as Tokyo, those add up really fast.
Okay, let's pivot to the financial obligations that often surprise expats because they don't hit immediately. They creep up on you in your second year. We're talking taxes and insurance.
This is critical information for anyone planning a long-term move. Planning based on your first-year take-home pay can lead to a major shock later.
So what's the first thing they should know about these mandatory deductions?
The biggest delayed cost is the resident tax, or Yuminzai. Think of it as a ghost tax. You don't pay it in your first year because you didn't earn any income in Japan the previous year.
But it kicks in significantly in your second year.
Right. It's calculated based on your prior year's income, and deductions usually start in June. If you earned $5,000 in your first year, this tax is a substantial addition to your overall tax burden that you have to budget for.
It's essentially a mandatory pay cut that takes effect 18 months after you start working. No wonder it surprises people.
And then there's social insurance.
What about the safety nets?
That's handled by social insurance, or Shakai Hoken. If you're employed by a Japanese company, you're automatically enrolled. It covers health, pension, and unemployment.
And the good news here is that your employer covers half.
Exactly, which significantly lessens the burden. The total contribution rates are roughly 10% for health and 18% for pension, but you only pay half of that.
So you're looking at roughly 5% of your gross salary for health and 9% for pension.
Which offers great peace of mind and essential coverage.
We need to address the family budget here too, because for listeners with kids, the feasibility of that $4,000 monthly budget hinges entirely on childcare and education.
For families, navigating the childcare system is the key to financial survival. The most budget-friendly route by far is the licensed daycare system, Ninka Hoikun.
Because they're heavily subsidized by the government.
Right. The fees are calculated strictly based on your household income, making it manageable even on lower salaries.
And the subsidies are quite generous for older children, aren't they?
They are. The sources confirm that for children aged 3 to 5, care is often completely free. For younger children, licensed daycare can range from as low as $10,000 up to maybe $60,000, depending on your income.
This sounds like the obvious affordability strategy.
It is, but it comes with a major caveat.
Which is the competitiveness, right?
Exactly. While it's the budget-friendly choice, demand is extremely high, especially in central wards. Waitlists are common, and getting a spot, even if you can afford it, is not guaranteed.
And the expensive alternatives, they immediately blow the $600,000 budget out of the water.
Immediately. We're talking about international primary schools, where yearly fees can easily exceed $2 million.
That's over $1,000 a month, just for basic tuition.
For families, the difference between subsidized and private care is the difference between making the $4,000 budget work and needing double that amount.
All right, let's move to the fun stuff. Leisure and lifestyle, the splurge zone.
And this segment completely depends on how disciplined you are with spending.
Leisure costs are entirely discretionary, but we can give some concrete benchmarks so our listener can budget accurately.
Sure. If you want a casual night out at an izakaya, a Japanese pub, sharing food and drinks might cost you between $2,000 and $4,000.
And what about something like a movie?
Movie tickets are quite pricey. $1,800 to $2,000, you need to look for discount days, like Ladies' Day or student discounts.
What about hobbies or fitness?
You can find excellent budget-friendly gym memberships. The newer 24-hour access gyms typically range from $3,000 to $10,000 monthly. And of course, Tokyo has tons of free or low-cost options like parks and temples.
So what's a realistic total monthly estimate for leisure?
When you factor everything in, hobbies, subscriptions, a few nights out, the sources estimate monthly spending ranging wildly from $22,000 on the low end to $43,000 if you're a bit more social.
That's a huge variance. It really emphasizes the point that lifestyle is the ultimate driver of expense after housing.
And we cannot forget the miscellaneous spending creep. It sounds tiny, but those small purchases add up.
Things like toiletries, coin laundry.
Coin laundry might run you $800 a month. Or those impulse buys from the endless vending machines. Those expenses can easily add an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a month without you even noticing.
So what does this all mean when we bring it back to the original mission? Is $4,000 a month or $600,000 enough to live in Tokyo?
Based on the evidence, yes. $600,000 provides a solid, comfortable footing in Tokyo, especially for a single person.
Because the average single person cost is around $2,050. That leaves nearly $2,000 of flexibility.
Exactly. That is enough room for higher, more central rent, dining out more, and still putting a significant amount into savings. But that feasibility absolutely relies on the listener prioritizing savings on rent by living further out.
And leveraging the affordability of cooking at home and mastering that commuter pass system.
Right. So the sources have given us 4 clear, actionable takeaways for anyone planning this move.
Let's hear them.
First, remember that Tokyo is relatively cheaper than comparable cities like London and Sydney. Don't be intimidated by the hype. Second, you must be prepared for the massive upfront housing costs. That key money is unavoidable.
Third, manage your daily budget with the commuter pass and home cooking.
And fourth, be keenly aware that the resident tax and full pension obligations will significantly increase your monthly spending after your first year.
Fantastic analysis. You have the numbers, you have the strategies, and you know where the hidden costs are.
And this raises an important question, especially for families. Given that government-licensed daycare is the critical affordability strategy for them, and its cost is income-based, how much longer can Tokyo maintain its affordability advantage for those families if the demand for these subsidized resources remains so high and access becomes increasingly competitive?
That is the next level of financial planning every parent moving to Tokyo needs to explore beyond just the initial budget sheet.